We can clean up our food supply and really improve public health and healthcare. And that should be a main priority in this country. So just getting some seed oils and food dyes out of our food supply is not the proper way to address the obesity epidemic. It's like treating the symptoms and not the problem. So, Carla, you are in Los Angeles, where currently there are all sorts of historic wildfires raging. How are you holding up?
Yeah, it's been quite the week. So they started about a week ago. There's two huge fires. I'm sure everyone's heard the news by now. Their Palisades fire, I think today, as of the app I checked, it's about 15% contained. 15%, guys. This thing is massive. I think I read the other day that it's the largest natural disaster that California has ever experienced. Which is insane considering, everything that's happened in history in this state. But it's also like one of the highest costly ones, like right behind Katrina. But seeing the destruction and the devastation that's occurred is just unimaginable. I lived in California my entire life. I've never seen anything like this. It's really scary. Thankfully, my family and I have not necessarily been directly affected, but I actually went to go volunteer this weekend and donate a bunch of stuff, even to like animal shelters, because everyone's being affected. The animals were being displaced. It's so, so sad all around. Um, and then obviously the air quality we're dealing with, it's awful. So, and Mary, you and I lived in San Francisco. I feel like we've been through this as well, where the Bay experiences wildfires, and we've had to take some pretty just precautions to make sure that we're protecting our own health, in addition to all the safety measures that are going on. But yeah, it's been one hell of a week, and I think I'm emotionally a little bit exhausted right now, just given that they're still going, and we still have really high Santa Ana winds that are supposed to come in tomorrow. So the future of this right now is still up in the air, and they're still giving evacuation order notices. And thankfully, again, I don't think that I'm going to be affected, but there's a lot of people specifically in the valley that will be. So it's just scary times.
Yeah, I follow a man on Instagram. He's called the Angry Therapist, and his name is John Kim. And he lost his house in Altadena. And one thing he did say that I thought was really kind of profound is that your nervous system gets so dysregulated during traumatic events like this. And your body doesn't understand really that you don't have a home to go to anymore. Your mind cognitively can process that, but your body is still stuck in this state of fight or flight. So having your community around you, he was talking about just how he is surrounding himself with other families that are going through similar feelings and have lost their homes also. And just the power of community in times like
Yeah.
this is really profound. And I live in Tahoe, and we face really pretty extreme wildfire danger here also. And I've been through several summers where the AQI, the air quality index, was in the 800s when it should be, in the 10 or below, basically. So just a couple suggestions for anyone out there who might be facing wildfire smoke inhalation. Just a few supplements to take to help protect your lung health. The first one on the list is N-acetylcysteine, which is very lung protective, and it's very detoxifying. It boosts glutathione in your liver, which is your body's master antioxidant to help you kind of process chemicals that you might be exposed to. An omega-3 fatty acid to reduce any kind of inflammation is always helpful, and an antioxidant kind of complex. And if you want to add something on there, a B complex too is very nourishing for a dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to mention that for just any stressful traumatic states, a lot of those nutrients get depleted. So B vitamins are great, magnesium. Yeah, that's some really helpful information. And just the regular precautions too that I feel like always with any fire in terms of protecting your lung health, like make sure you have a good air filter in the house, run that 24/7. Masks are back. They're back in style right now in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
So N95, P100, and I follow also a guy on Instagram who's a scientist, and I was watching his video the other day, and he was talking about how the chemicals that released in these urban fires, especially in Los Angeles, where we have really, really old housing, the materials are really old, and everything that gets produced from those can be incredibly dangerous for your pulmonary system. So just to be, on the side of caution, even if you don't live in an area where you're seeing smoke or you're smelling smoke, the particles travel and they can still affect people, even myself included, that maybe, 10 miles out, 20 miles out. So they are saying that just for precaution, like make sure and wear masks outside, even if
Yeah.
the air is clear.
Yeah, that's good advice too. Well, uh, we hope you're staying safe and glad that you're not directly affected, but it's really heartening to hear that the community there is really rallying, coming together for
Yes.
both people and animals.
Yeah. It's definitely, I will say, I've talked to everyone, and there's so many people out this weekend donating, coming together, volunteering. It's been really great to see LA just pull through. Like, I feel like LA is known as this very isolated city where everyone's very individualistic and we're all doing our own things. But to see this go on and the support, just the outpour of support has been really, truly just kind of, at least for myself, giving a little hope back that there is humanity out there,
Yeah,
especially in this crazy political time. So, yeah, at the very least, that is one thing that I think is good to come out of it.
good. Yeah. Well, speaking of this crazy political time, our actual topic for today, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Make America Healthy Again movement that has been kind of spearheaded by RFK and the Trump campaign. So we're going to switch gears and launch right into that. One thing I wanted to just state before we kind of get into our key topic today is the MAHA purpose, which is to, quote, dismantle the corporate stranglehold on our government agencies that has led to widespread chronic disease, environmental degradation, and rampant public distrust. And that is going to be a very instrumental statement as we move through our content today, because there's a lot of hypocrisy behind that in terms of what has been done during the past Trump presidency and how MAHA really misses the mark for making America healthy again and improving public health, because the focus is on the wrong key points in what actually could make America healthy again, if America ever really was healthy to begin with.
Hmm, that's a big question.
Yeah, for sure.
um, yeah, and I think, like you said, Mary, I think the most confusing part about all of this to me, like, was the hypocrisy behind it. It just goes completely against, I feel like, what the Trump administration is doing, has been talking about. And I don't understand. And I'm trying to be open. I really am. I am trying my hardest to lead with curiosity, but I don't understand how you can, you can say one thing, but then have someone else running public health say another.
Yeah. Yeah, and our key point here is we are nutritionists, and you're a registered dietitian. I'm a nutritionist. We are very interested in public health and making America healthy, and many of our colleagues in wellness are extremely supportive of this movement. And I've spoken out on publicly on my Instagram page, and I have sent
Mm.
newsletters to my over 8,000 subscribers about the problems with the MAHA movement and why it misses the forest for the trees. And I've gotten a lot of angry backlash, people telling me that I've lost their business and that how could I be a nutritionist and I'm a hypocrite? I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. How could I not be supportive of a movement that is aiming at public health? And what RFK wants to do predominantly, and what our industry is focused on, is removing food dyes from ultra processed foods, really clamping down on the ultra processed foods, which are these incredibly chemical based snack foods, packaged foods, and processed foods. So cleaning up the food supply in that way, soil regeneration, which sounds great on the surface. What else does he say? Oh, incentivize sustainable farming, improve soil health, protect natural habitats, clean up our air, water, and food supply, ban fluoride in drinking water. So, on the face value, all of that sounds amazing. But let's not forget that in Trump's first term, he rolled back something like over 100 environmental policies that could have improved our environment and our air quality and our water quality. And so that's what I mean when I say there's a big level of hypocrisy going on here. And we're also going to talk today more about why just cleaning up the food supply and removing some additives and dyes is not the place to start if we truly want to improve public health, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget that RFK has no formal health training. I think that's always important
Oh, yeah.
to know. You know, when you're putting someone like this in a position of power that really is going to dictate the health of our country, I wouldn't think of putting an attorney in that position. And it's really scary. I feel like when you're it's kind of like an influencer, right? We have influencers out there that are touting all of this health information, and they don't necessarily have any formal training, they don't have any education, but yet people are believing them. And I feel like the same thing is now happening with our government. And as a health professional, it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, very well said. And the other point about RFK is he is known for kind of being a conspiracy theorist and spreading a lot of misinformation about vaccine health. And that's another issue that's very touchy in our industry because there are a lot of people who are very anti-vaccines. And yes, we have seen some problems with the COVID vaccine, but let's not forget that, polio and measles vaccines have virtually wiped out those diseases until they made a resurgence due to kind of an anti-vax movement. And so he's been sort of spreading misinformation about vaccines and about public health for a while, and people are really eating this up. And with his kind of vaccine agenda, I think there are vaccine requirements for children to attend school. He wants to roll those back and put the decision to the families, which again, at face value sounds good. We should have bodily autonomy. But a lot of public health officials are really worried that we're going to see huge spikes
Yeah.
in completely preventable diseases.
Yeah, exactly. And diseases that we haven't seen in a very long time. I believe measles was one of them that came
Yeah.
up. It's like those things are not something that we should have to be worried about again. So,
Yeah. So, big thing too is seed oils, right? And we're going to talk a lot about
yes.
like seed oils and vegetable oils. And there's kind of a lot of misinformation spreading about how these particular polyunsaturated fats are super unhealthy. And that was something that I taught for a long time, was to avoid all vegetable oils because they tend to be oxidized and rancid. Instead focus on more whole foods based oils like olive oil, coconut oil, butter. But now we're actually really seeing the data show that these types of oils can be very cardioprotective and maybe aren't nearly as bad as we thought. So one of
Yeah.
RFK's big platforms that everybody in the holistic health community is really latching onto, is that he wants to get rid of the seed oils, all vegetable oils in our food supply, along with food dyes and additives. So the one thing I want to mention with that too is that if you get rid of vegetable oils in the food supply, how much more expensive is food actually going to be? Because yes, there are forms of fats that could take the place of vegetable oils, like beef tallow, I think is one of them, or just these unprocessed fats, but they tend to be much more expensive. So how is that going to impact the cost of food? And the other major thing that I want to point out about this whole MAHA movement in cleaning up the food supply is it can be a both and situation. So the main thing we really need to focus on in this country is affordable healthcare. That is the main reason that we have a health crisis in this country, is because we are the only civilized nation in the world that doesn't have standardized or universal healthcare. And that's probably why we're one of the most unhealthy nations in the world. And it's not because of some seed oils and some food dyes. It's because
Yeah.
we have Trump actually rolled back a lot of Affordable Care Act policies in his first presidency. We have very inaccessible healthcare. Our healthcare system is so fucked. And
Yeah.
we have lack of access to healthy food. There's a large percentage of Americans that live in food deserts that don't have access to healthy food. Ultra processed food is super cheap. Eating whole foods is expensive. It's more expensive than eating processed foods. So these are all problems, starting, of course, with a lack of access to affordable healthcare that really actually would make a bigger impact and make America healthy. And yes, I am all for cleaning up the
Yeah.
food supply, but that is not the 100% main reason why we are unhealthy. And we need to do both clean up the food supply and offer affordable healthcare. So that's my rant.
No, I absolutely love it, Mary. And you wrote a beautiful article on all of this. And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, 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 yes. And I know that obviously you and I are biased in that we align a lot in our opinions on this topic. But I mean, how can you not? I just, in a time like especially right now, where our healthcare is just not serving us, it hasn't been serving us. I personally lived in Europe last summer, and so I got to experience not necessarily directly universal healthcare, but I got to see it, and I got to talk with friends who live there, and it is life changing to be
Mm.
able to live in a country where
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to stress about if you get sick and where you go. Can you afford it? Are you going to go broke? If you break your
Mm-hmm.
leg and you don't have health insurance, are you going to be able to take care of it?
Mm-hmm.
And I recently went through a transition with my work where I left my job, or, I parted ways from my job, and I lost my health care. So I had to pay for health care now. Right. And that experience in itself, I'm just like, whoa, this is a lot. I was
Oh, it's
not
like
expecting.
$700 a month for a decent plan.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
It, in terms of budgeting and everything, like it really was kind of life changing, and it was a sticker shock. But there's no other way around it in this country. And the fact that you can live in another country that has universal health care and you don't have to have that stress or burden or worry is just such a peace of mind.
Mm.
And I don't know what it's going to take for us to get there, but it would be such a huge first step. And yeah, it's sad that that is not the conversations that's taking place. And instead, like you said, it's all these kind of like little conversations for people to, let's be honest. I mean, the conversations that are taking place are more for people of privilege that can afford really good food, that are looking at these seed oils.
Yeah,
And even
100%.
then, let's just talk about real quick, just for a second, this whole seed oil thing. It's not relevant anymore. There are studies that have come out recently that have shown that seed oils are not bad, and
Right.
they can actually be really beneficial for cardiovascular, for your heart health. And it's not like we have to avoid them completely. And to your point, yes, there's no way that food companies can take them out of our food system, because price of food would be outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just seed oils. We have, like, olive oil in this country is not great either. People like tout olive oil, and it's so good, but the majority of olive oil in this country comes from all over the world, multiple countries, and one, it's they travel, it can oxidize. Like sometimes olive oil can be worse than vegetable oil, just depending
Mm-hmm.
on how it's processed and where it comes from. So it's not necessarily just gonna be changing the ingredients in food to make us healthy again. There's so many factors at play.
Yeah. And back to our healthcare system. I think I read somewhere that medical bankruptcy in this country is the third leading cause of people declaring bankruptcy. And people are avoiding seeking health care because they can't afford to see a doctor. So there are people that actually need healthcare or need to see specialists and just avoid going because they can't afford the out-of-pocket expenses that are associated, even if you have insurance. And of course, we've all heard about insurance claims being denied, and how that whole spotlight is really kind of being shown on our healthcare industry, which is good. But yeah, just going back to the reasons why we're so unhealthy, that's another main one, and just our sedentary lifestyles here. So
Yeah.
yes, cheap, easy to produce processed food is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's much less expensive than healthier whole foods. And we're a very sedentary nation. So those are two big causes. And just again, lack of healthcare and lack of nutrition education. We're not being taught exactly what we need or the skills to keep ourselves healthy. So my point with the both and is, yes, we can both clean up our food supply, clean up the soil, clean up the environment, and also fix our healthcare system. That's what really needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add here, just when in Trump's first term, he undermined public health and environmental policies such as relaxing school nutrition standards and reversing bans on pesticides that are linked to neurological problems in children. And he made
Jeez.
concerted efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. He rolled back environmental workplace protections and weakened limits on carbon dioxide emissions. So, yeah, there's a whole list here that I won't really go into. And that's kind of the hypocrisy point that I wanted to make, is just that, no, just the hypocrisy involved with rolling back all of these environmental protections and yet just focusing on seed oils and food dyes without looking at the bigger picture about what is
Yeah.
really going to make our environment and our population healthy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should definitely talk about as well, how do we actually make America healthy again? Like what are some things that people can do that are tangible, actionable, like right now? So because we can't necessarily change our healthcare system, right? So what can individuals do right now to actually create change? So I want to
You,
take like just some time to talk about those things. And I had mentioned I had an experience living in Spain for 3 months last summer, and it really opened my eyes to this conversation that I hear a lot from Americans, especially people who complain about the ingredients in our food, in that, oh, Europeans and our European food supply is so much healthier than America. It's so much better for us. I go to Europe and I don't feel bloated from eating gluten over there, and all of these kind of one-off situations where it's that person's experience, which could definitely be true. And we know that obviously Europe has much stricter regulations than the US. There's no doubt about that. However, given I would say, average diet for a European, and I'm gonna actually go beyond that and just say specifically Spain because I lived there, so I don't want to speak for other countries. But I will not say that their diet is necessarily healthier than ours. The
hmm,
food that you get when you go out there, it may be fresh, but they eat a lot of fried foods. They eat a lot of snacked foods. They still have chips. They still have sucralose in foods. They still have artificial sweeteners. They still have a lot of additives in their commercial foods in the grocery stores. It's not like it's completely quote unquote clean. So I just want people to know that it's not just America that has these ingredients in our food. It is also other countries.
hmm.
They just may have stricter regulations and what specific ingredients they can carry over there. But that was a big thing that kind of woke me up to, gosh, I kind of miss my food back home because they actually their vegetable intake is much lower than ours. I had to really like seek out restaurants that offered salads and fresh vegetables. A
Hmm.
lot of that's not even on the menu for traditional Spanish cuisine. And I was just shocked. And I'm really, what I attribute their great health to is not necessarily the diet. I
Mhm.
really truly believe that the health out there is due to so many factors, which I want to just talk about a few. First of all, movement.
Mhm.
I did not drive anywhere in Europe unless I was like actually being a tourist and seeing sights. You walk everywhere. I was averaging 15,000 to 20,000 steps a day. Movement is just part of your lifestyle. You're not sitting 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. You're not being overworked. You're actually, walking everywhere. And that makes such a huge difference. The other one I want to point out is community. It is
Mhm.
so big and it is so obvious in Europe. The community factor, unlike Americans where we're super isolated, they live with families until their 30s and 40s. I'm not saying that is something that we need to do, but they don't lose touch to people who are close to them and they prioritize that. And they get off of work in time so that they can go and prioritize that. They don't, work into the wee hours of the night. And I just really thought that was beautiful because I've spent so much of my life working so hard for so long and seeing that there's another way to live where you're not burning yourself out and you're enjoying life, but still making, you know, a, a good, income, for where you live is, it's about happiness for them. And I think that's a huge contributor to health. And then obviously we talked about the access to their healthcare. That's not a worry. It's completely free for them, unless it's private healthcare. But yeah, those are my biggest, I would say, factors that I believe, other than the food system, is contributing to health in Europe, and probably other first world countries.
Yeah, well said. And let's not kid ourselves. It's overconsumption of processed foods that is driving the
Yes.
obesity epidemic here, along with movement. I think that actually, if you want to start with a cheap and easy way to improve your health today, getting more movement, getting more steps throughout the day is actually more impactful, some experts say, than dramatically changing your diet. Because our bodies are meant to move. And these ultra processed foods that people are over consuming are also ultra addictive. They have certain ingredients and chemicals in them that light up pleasure centers in our brain, making them hard to not binge on.
Yeah.
So, and just the fact that we've been talking about how these foods are kind of easily accessible, more accessible than whole foods, and easy to overconsume is my point. But yeah, I think experts also say that community is one of the most important factors for longevity. So just community, movement, and sleep, those are three, working on those three factors can improve
Mhm.
your health so dramatically, even probably more impactful than completely changing your diet.
Oh yeah. And I'm, obviously I think I would be biased being a dietitian, but I know that even from my own personal experience. If I don't get sleep, that's my number one. I'm useless.
Me
And if I
too.
don't get if I don't get movement every day, let's
Yeah, I
just,
don't feel
outright
right.
say it. Like I
Yeah.
don't feel right. I'm moody. People don't want to be around me. Like, no, it's not fun. Like I'm not a good person if I don't work out.
Well, I hate the whole like sitting is the new smoking thing, but like I
Um,
said, our bodies are designed for movement throughout the day. So, and something that I always tell my clients that I work with, just if you are not used to getting movement throughout the day, the best way to do that is to start with a 2 to 5 minute walk after each meal. That's all you need.
mm,
And there are all sorts of studies coming out now saying that just this one habit can improve your glucose regulation, your blood sugar levels really dramatically, more dramatically even than doing like pounding the pavement for a 5 mile run first thing in the morning. But, doing that
yes.
and then just sitting all day long isn't doing you any favors either. So breaking up your movement
Mhm.
throughout the day and especially after meals helps the glucose regulation because it's getting glucose out of your bloodstream and into your cells where it belongs. So it's that movement is helping get that glucose into your cells where your body can actually use it. So
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
people get really overwhelmed thinking they have to go to the gym, join the gym, spend an hour in the gym every day. And you really don't. Just get started with a few bursts of movement throughout the day and then build from there.
Yeah. And sunlight, if you can work out outdoors, do it. it's kind of like a 2 for 1.
Oh,
You
100%.
know,
Yeah. And it also improves your
I
mood.
Yeah, it does. And I'm saying that and also saying it to myself because it's something I need to do more and I would like to do more this year because I am a little bit of kind of in a gym rut just because it's routine and it's easy for me, but I know the benefits of sunlight and that is something I do not get enough of every day just with, work and having to get things done. It can be difficult, but to that point, I want to say restructuring priorities is key to be able to do these things that we're talking about. When I used to work with clients, that was the number one thing I would hear from people is I just don't have time. I just don't have time.
Mm.
Well, you're going to have to make the time eventually. If it's not now, it's going to have to be eventually. Otherwise, your health will not change. And so I think yeah, finding something that you enjoy, that is pleasurable, that you can keep doing consistently is a must.
Yeah. Yeah. Good points. And we're going to talk a lot about sleep in upcoming podcasts, but we've given you some good, actionable, free things that you can do to improve your health just today, right? We talked about community, the importance of sunlight on your face, especially in the morning, helps improve your circadian rhythm, which can
Yes.
actually improve your sleep at night. So, sleep, sunlight, community, movement, those are 4 things you can do just today to improve your health. And we're in a new year now, and people are thinking about how to do that. So, it's a great time to kind of implement and make these changes.
Most definitely. And I will say, if you have not watched the Blue Zone documentary on Netflix, it's phenomenal. And it talks a lot about what we're discussing right now. Why do these areas of the world live longer than most people? It's because a lot of the factors that we're talking about right now. And it's just part of their culture. It's part of their daily routine. It's something that I don't even know if they prioritize or it's just been so ingrained in them for, centuries that they live better than most people around the world. So I always recommend that as something to just get a little bit more educated about and see how these people live. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I actually read that their sense of community is really even more impactful than their diet
Yeah.
for why. So, blue zones are those zones across the world that have the largest number of octogenarians and people who live to be over 100. And it's normally associated with diet, but now we think it actually has more to do with the fact that they are so community oriented. So,
Yeah.
I, again, with the sitting is the new smoking thing, I think I read somewhere too that lack of community was worse than smoking,
Yeah.
just loneliness and isolation, which it's
Yeah.
true. Humans are hardwired for connection, just like we're hardwired for movement. We're tribal people, and that's how we thrive and flourish.
Absolutely. And more now than ever, we're seeing rising rates of mental illness and depression and anxiety. And I know that that spiked after COVID, but it's not going down. So there's
Mm,
there's something else.
mm.
It wasn't just the pandemic, it wasn't just COVID. I really do think we have to look at our culture and our way of life in America and realize that it's more than that. It is, I think, a lack of community for most people.
Well, and as you mentioned, our work ethic in this country is that's what people prioritize over everything else. It makes me so sad that we're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You leave when it's dark, you come home when it's dark, you barely spend any time with your family. And for what? I mean, obviously, the cost of everything is rising in this country, which is another problem. But we don't prioritize our family and our connections as much as we prioritize working. And I'm sure you've seen that list of regrets dying people have. And one of them is I deeply wish I'd spent less time at the office and more time with my family.
Yeah. Oh, God, I got chills. I can see that old lady saying that. I remember I mean, it's all over social, but yeah, those were some really beautiful quotes to just as good reminders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to say more about MAHA, or have we hit all our points there?
I think so. And sorry to get so political on everyone, but this I felt like was just kind of the elephant in the room when it started to happen. Mary and I had the conversation of, do we want to stay away from this? Do we want to talk about it? And I was like, we have to talk about it. This is like a lot of this affects us and our industry, and especially with, the wellness area and having to fight misinformation. And oh gosh, the one thing I do want to mention is I did hear there was going to be algorithm changes,
Oh,
to
yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. So everyone out there, just beware. There's going to be a lot less regulation on
Fact
just
checking.
thank you.
Yeah.
Let's Kevin, can you edit that loud? There's going to be
Well,
a lot less regulation around fact checking. Yes.
and yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, a lot of these wellness influencers in our industry don't have education or any formal
Yeah.
training in health topics. And there is so much scary misinformation about cleanses and different sort of health remedies out there, which is designed to empower people to
Yeah.
take their health into their hands and do their own research. But if you're not trained how to do your own research, and if you're not trained to see through a lot of the quackery out there, then some of this information can do real harm. And, I'm truly frightened for what is coming.
I am too. And that actually reminds me, not to completely go off on a tangent, but it's very related to what we're talking about. And this is an example of how easy it is to spread misinformation. So with all these wildfires right now spreading across LA, there was just within the last, day or two, all this information, these videos, these pictures that came out that was completely fake news. And there was
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, there was a fire that was burning in the Hollywood Hills, and there was this image of the Hollywood sign literally lit on fire and burning down, and I was like, oh my gosh. But then as I was reading more into it,
Now, was that
that
fake? I
that's
saw
when
that too.
that was completely fake. I was like literally driving down Sunset, and I was like, wait, the Hollywood sign is fine.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
running
just
out
an
of
example of
water.
how running out of water was actually true in the Palisades, I believe. I don't want to actually, please don't quote me on that, because I think a lot of that information could be false as well. But it's really hard, is what I'm saying, to decipher, what is true on social media. I mean,
Oh,
I'm even
totally.
having a hard time with this whole fire stuff. Health stuff, obviously, I can be a better judge at it, but you just never know. And so it's just really scary to think that, the people in charge of these platforms are, I feel like, not taking it seriously and are going to actually, roll back
Well,
fact checking and regulation.
and that's the thing with RFK is his spreading a lot of conspiracy theories and misinformation. And this is the person who is heading our Department of Public Health. So, the one takeaway that I would like to emphasize from our conversation today just is that we can, like I've said a couple times, we can have both things happen simultaneously. We can clean up our food supply and really improve public health and healthcare. And that should be a main priority in this country. So just getting some seed oils and food dyes out of our food supply is not the proper way to address the obesity epidemic. It's like treating the symptoms and not the problem. And you and I are
Exactly.
really trained to look at the underlying causes of health issues. And there are a lot of social determinants of health, like racism and lack of access to healthy food, these food deserts, all of those things would make a real impact in making America healthy rather than just spreading
Yeah.
misinformation about seed oils and getting food dyes out of our processed foods, which again, no, I'm not against that at all. I'm just saying
No.
this is the forest for the trees.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're not all privileged and able to avoid seed oils. That some of that food people need to survive. Like you were saying, Mary, if you're in a food desert or if you have a certain like low budget every month for food, we're just not all in that position to be able to sweat about the small things.
100%. Yeah, that's a really important point to make is that wellness influencers kind of miss the fact that not everybody has access or even time. If you're a single working mother with 4 kids, do you have time to stop by Whole Foods on your way home from work and soak and sprout some black beans and rice, which everyone says, oh, that's really inexpensive food. But do you have time to prepare that for your 4 children after you've worked a 12-hour shift? So these are kind of the social issues that really impact health as much as cleaning up the food supply, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we covered it. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm scared about what's coming down the pipe, but hopefully this information helped because, I've, like I said, gotten a lot of backlash from people in my industry calling me a hypocrite when I've spoken out against this movement and about the problems with this movement. A lot of my newsletter subscribers unsubscribed. I lost a ton of Instagram followers for speaking out about the problems with the MAHA movement. And I want to be very clear that I'm not against, like I've been saying, I'm not against improving our food supply, but we really need to start elsewhere first.
Yeah, and that's the point I think that both of us want to drive home is just there's bigger priorities. And I myself obviously am not against. I hate the word clean eating. I can't even say it sometimes because again, that then says that there's dirty eating, and I don't view food like that anymore. Thank God.
Totally.
And that was kind of like what we talked about in our last episode around orthorexia. It's not a healthy way to view food. And I don't want to demonize food. And I want to share that experience with people because just because a food has maybe an ingredient that, quote unquote, is not healthy, I guess, according to some influencer, doesn't mean that it's not edible and it can't be healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. We are talk about that in upcoming podcasts too, the problems with polarizing food into good and bad. But yes, that was well said.
Great. Well, thanks for hanging in there, guys. Again, sorry about maybe a little bit too much politics for today, but we really thought that this was important to share, and I still do believe that.
Yep. Yeah. I'll link to my article that I wrote about the MAHA movement um, in the show notes. And it's from my Substack account where I write about health and mental wellness and hopefully that can be something that people can refer to also.
Yeah, it's a great, great article. Check it out,
Oh,
guys. Mary's a phenomenal writer.
oh
I really
thanks.
do. Yeah, I love reading your stuff. I really do truly enjoy it.
Thank you.
Hmm. All right. Well, we'll wrap up and we'll see you guys later.
Yep.